the most popular guy in the audience. I wanted to thank staff for the efforts that were made and that we worked together to bring the community benefit agreement to you tonight to review. Staff's presentation was fantastic and very inclusive of all the details. I think I can probably mention, but I did want to mention a couple of things. I think a lot of the speakers that you're here behind me will mention no growth and stopping a lot of residential development. In meetings past, I also heard a lot about smart growth. We know that we have had applications on the east side of town. We've had general plan initiation requests that were approved. We decided not to move forward on those based on a lot of the feedback that we heard from many of the folks here tonight, and also understanding that the city of Dublin has a responsibility to the school district and as well as the applications that are coming before you. We looked closely at the downtown specific plan. This was a great opportunity for us to really find a vision that was intended to do that exact thing with smart growth. There was a very well-balanced mix of residential uses, commercial uses, retail, hotel, and so forth that really supported itself. And the vision of that downtown plan was something that we were very attracted to. We came up with a vision for you last December, asked for reservation of units, and we were on our way to plan that. Understanding that the reservations of units on an approval, strictly that reservation allowed us to come up with an exciting plan. The downtown specific plan is a great document, and we were really given a roadmap of what the city's looking for, very specific on the features, and Councilmember Hart specifically mentioned quality development when we were here in December. We brought forward a award-winning development. I can say that because we actually won several awards for it in our Southern California division this year as the Community of the Year nationwide. So we know that Dublin is always looking for exciting new types of homes. We brought in something that is unique, with roof decks and a very interesting design, because we are coming in the first project in the retail district. There's, as mentioned, there's 400 allocations allowed. We're asking for the first 60. That is a scary proposition to come in and be first, of course, because as you know, this is a revitalization project basically. So as we come in, we don't have partners yet, and they are coming. You saw a lot of the retail growth. I think you'll hear from some folks tonight about that. But we are very excited to come in and bring something and be the first and bring you a project that really sets the bar. We also were very sensitive to the school district and understand that the residential units are just a bad word, right? But we also know that there's a need for it, and the activation of the downtown plan was very, very important. Of the densities that are allowed in this area, 22 to the acre is the lowest, and I believe it goes over 50. We came in with 22.06. So we were very respectful to the bringing in too many homes too close together, packing them in one spot, not letting them spread out, especially when there's only really a handful of allocations that are allowed in a very large area. You saw the map and you saw a lot of those hard surface areas, parking lots, and so forth. But we understand the sensitivity. So I know that there's going to be some strong pushback tonight. I respect that. I absolutely understand where they're coming from. I lived in Dublin. I love Dublin. And we're a local developer. We're building in here now, both retail we built residential, currently building residential even. We believe in the downtown, and we believe that this is a plan that's been very well thought out by people much, much smarter than me. Consultants over a good amount of time, vetted out very well with the public, and fresh. We were facing a pretty stale specific plan on the east side of town, 25 plus years old. This is 4 years old. So I feel like we're still in that window and just starting now. So we respectfully ask you to approve the community benefit agreement, to accept our $1 million community benefit, our $800,000 affordable housing fee, and allow the project to move forward. And we're excited about the unanimous approval of the Planning Commission. That's not an easy thing to do these days, and we were very pleased. They ran us through the ringer, and we certainly changed some things, upside some trees, and added some things to the architecture, but we were able to please them, and we're hoping that we can continue the project out forward. And I do thank everybody for coming tonight. I do respect their opinions. I understand where they're coming from. I do believe this is the smart growth category, though, and I'm available to answer any questions either now or at the end of the public comment period. And I also have my Director of Architecture, Garrett Hines, with me as well.
Do you have any PowerPoint presentation to make?
I don't actually, I don't.
No problem, great. Any clarifying questions that we have of the applicant at this time? Mr. Hart?
How you doing, Chris?
Good, how are you?
Thanks for being here. And I know you've been in the audience when other people have been here, so now you're on the hot spot right now.
Yes, sir.
So I know you said you had your architecture here. Can you describe a couple different things? Number one, why it was designed the way that it was laid out for the degree that you and people have said this, so I'm not necessarily saying, but I'm repeating what I've been asked and so forth. It seems like there are 60 housing units crammed in there to get the maximum amount. I don't see, well, before I tell you what I don't see, what you've always been reported is you're looking for variance on the parking. So there's that issue. The second issue is I don't see any, play area, play structure. I never thought I'd ever say this before in my life, but I don't see a dog area, all right? For that, so I mean, it just seems like it's just grouped in there to maximize, and again, forgive me, but I'm repeating what other people have said, because that's my job, and that, it's grouped in there to maximize profits for the developers. Can you kind of respond to some of those points?
Certainly, I'd like to respond to the traffic, or the parking ratios first, and then I'll hand it over to Garrett to better and more eloquently talk to the site design itself. And we also use Gates & Associates for our landscape architecture. They're fantastic, as I'm sure you know, so you can speak to the landscape portion of that site as well, which would cover the open space area. The parking in Dublin, as we all know, and I live on the east side of town as well, parking is a very sensitive subject, especially with the approval of a lot of the units on the east side that had tandem parking. A lot of the projects came in, they had.
We don't allow tandem parking in Dublin anymore.
Yeah, that's what I understand. With that, there was one car, it became one-car garages in a lot of cases, so you saw a lot of the overflow parking. Dublin passed the requirement to have one space extra guest parking per unit, which in many areas became kind of a permanent parking space for many of the homes. In the zoning ordinance, there is a exception to discuss any projects that have what they feel is a parking reduction application to analyze really if that area, that particular project could use a reduced parking number. That has to be studied, has to show that there's not a overflow or an impact to adjacent projects, developments, shopping centers, residential homes, whatever. So what we did is we looked at that, and we had TJK, and they're actually here tonight to talk if they need to. The local traffic consultant that did a study and really showed, had an opinion that the reduced parking ratio from 3 to 1 instead of 2.6 or 2.6 instead of 3 was appropriate given the proximity to transit, given the BART station location and so forth. The city's transportation engineer reviewed that and actually requested more information, basically approved that analysis. And what they did, we picked 3 different subdivisions that were similar to what we were proposing, one in Dublin, Danville, and San Ramon, so 3 total. And they did a full study. They were out at midnight and counting cars and looking at parking spaces, and there's a full traffic study that was in the Planning Commission's staff report. I don't know if you got a copy of it in yours, but what it did was basically analyze it was a similar type of project. Was there an overflow? Were there impacts? Were there adjacent parking lots that could be used for overflow parking? What was the real need?
So, can I interrupt you, Chris?
Of course.
I would like just cut to the chase.
Sorry, I didn't mean to ramble on. So basically, the traffic engineer studied the analysis. They agreed. The city's traffic engineer studied it and agreed. Staff made the recommendation to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission approved lower parking ratio.
Okay, so that really doesn't answer the question though, Steve. What it does is it tells me that you have the exception, or you have justification for the exception, but it doesn't tell me or answer the question as to why it was designed in such a manner, all right, that limits the amount of parking potentially just to meet the standard. In other words, just for the sake of argument, just why didn't you go 59 housing units to pick up a couple of spots?
Excellent question.
Just a kind of a
Yeah.
question.
And that's a simple and a quick response, and the answer is because there's no tandem parking, because it's side by side, it's physically impossible to get the minimum density, which is 20 to the acre, which we did, and also hit the parking ratio without going higher density and go to a podium structure. So when you go to a podium structure, you're looking at 45 to 50 units per acre to make that podium financially viable, and then you have this big monstrosity of a project that actually meets the parking ratio, but is much more than we probably want on that area.
And podium
Podium is down usually, it's usually a couple parking levels and then.
Okay,
construction
so
on top.
but that does beg the question though, and I apologize, but then that's about cost.
It's about density also, so we could build higher density, but it doesn't seem like the kind of density that Dublin would want in that area.
Okay.
And it's allowed, you can go higher, but the lower densities seem to be more acceptable and
Okay.
also less impacts.
So I'm good with parking. What about the other comments I had?
Let me pull up Garrett Hines, our Director of Architecture, he can talk about the site flow, the architecture, and also touch on landscaping a bit.
And unlike Mr. Gupta, I'm not trying to take all the time, all right? So,
And thank
you know,
for
if
the
you
time.
just want to, just the bullet points is what I'm looking for, all right? Comments. Sorry.
Thank you. I'll try to briefly touch on, of course, I'm a certified planner with the American Planning Association, practicing for 28 years. I always start a neighborhood design by bringing in consultants that I know are familiar with a certain type of architecture and design. The specific plan clearly asked for a contemporary, higher density, urban atmosphere with transit orientation, as well as a relationship to the retail environment. So with that, we saw a great opportunity to bring forward an architecture that we had done in Southern California, as Chris mentioned, won Community of the Year just this year. And then we approach it from the perimeter of the site. So along Regional, we really wanted to have front doors to the street and friendly architecture. So we have front doors to the street and an architecture that it embraces the neighborhood and puts eyes on the street and creates a friendly atmosphere. The southern edge against Popeyes, we turn the building sideways so that the auto traffic and interaction with Popeyes could be reduced and be acceptable to and have an interaction with a fewer number of units. But then to the southern end of that relationship, where we have a future retail opportunity, we worked with staff to make sure we have pedestrian connectivity that aligns with the beautiful oak trees on the neighboring property. We hope those can stay. We hope we can interact. Again, we have front doors to that southern edge, not next to Popeyes, where we hope to have a friendly interface to a future retail component. Then we look at the San Ramon edge. That's a thoroughfare with busy traffic. We have an extra 25 feet of setback there with a double row of trees. We're going to replace all the street trees that are in very poor quality along that edge, but we're also keeping 6 of the most beautiful trees on the site along that edge and having that extra setback to really respond to that edge and again have a side-on condition where the fewer homes are impacted by that thoroughfare. Then to the north edge, again, we have a retail component. Again, we have pedestrian connectivity that somewhat lines up with the portal into that neighborhood and really try to make this neighborhood connect as the specific plan asks for to the neighborhood. That's how I address the design.
Okay. Can I follow up on
Yes.
one question about the design?
Sure.
Was there a reason in your mind, and design-wise, why you didn't put retail into this issue? Is it because of close proximity, or what was your mindset?
But I think when I read the specific plan, I see an opportunity, I see an area asking for an influx of people shopping. And by bringing in a residential component to this area allows you to have morning foot traffic to coffee shops and bagel shops, lets you have lunch traffic, lets you have evening pedestrian activity to restaurants to support the retail environment, lets you have weekend pedestrian activity. People living here don't have to drive here. So when I read this specific plan, I see this opportunity to bring some residential units in to have a better balance with the retail and create really this vibrant downtown that we're all going for. So I think you have retail to the north, retail to the east, and I think there's plenty of retail to way off, and it's the more rooftops and residential component. And again, we chose a housing type that is attractive to a younger demographic or an older demographic. It's young couples that want to live near BART and walk to BART and work in the city, or maybe work in San Jose and Fremont, and it's a very central transit-oriented location in multiple respects with pedestrian activity. And so the home is a smaller home, it's got the roof decks, it's contemporary, and I think it's really gonna bring in an element of activity in the downtown area.
Thanks, Jim. Just a follow-up question. It's not a gated community.
Correct.
And if we walk through the main entrance is the main entrance for vehicles and people. The back two, they're primarily pedestrian, but they can be used for emergency access.
Correct, those are there for the fire department or emergency egress, or, I mean, to let the neighborhood escape or let fire come in. But it's always open to pedestrian connectivity, north, south, east, west.
Well, along Sandra Road, will there be a sidewalk or some area to walk?
Yes, we're rebuilding the whole sidewalk, new street trees, new tree grades, and on regional, putting in the new, those trees were planted many, many years ago, they're not really surviving, so new trees, new tree grades, the new, kind of initiating the street tree program that this area is asking for.
Did we lose any trees on the property?
We are removing 32 trees. I'm retaining the two best olive trees that are nestled into the building. We're replanting 244 trees on the property.
So a swap of 32.
7.6 trees for everyone we remove.
And we're saving the two
The
most
best trees on the
viable.
site, the olives, and then along San Ramon Road, there are 5 really nice trees, and those are retained.
Could you explain the spaces between the buildings there? The 4 rows of buildings, and it looks like between the 2 middle rows, and those aren't backyards, they're
No,
common
they're
areas?
common area paseos. Between the buildings, you have a walkway that leads to your front door, and it's a landscape space. Then in the central area, it's a little bit wider. Out there, we have an outdoor fireplace, sitting areas, a waterless fountain, a dry fountain. It's a Gabian rock sculpture with a metal mesh and rocks that are embedded in it. Gates Associates, fantastic landscape architects. And again, maybe not this house is designed for everyone. It doesn't have a backyard on purpose. It's a low maintenance for a younger lifestyle. And what you're getting in this neighborhood that you don't get anywhere in Dublin is not just a porch, but you're getting a roof deck that's almost the size of a 2-car garage. And that is your outdoor living, along with the common area. Now, a pet area, there are walkable areas. And in the upper left corner, there's some lawn area. And of course, we have to live together and work together with our pets.
That's the Kevin's dog.
I'm sorry, one more.
Do
you have a dog?
I do not.
He cares about those.
What do you care about?
Another question, Kevin?
Well, just real quick, is there any kind of such study, and maybe I'm just talking crazy talk, any study about adults not utilizing the garage for something other than vehicles?
What we will put into the CCNRs, number one, we'll have windows in the garage doors. But in the CCNRs, we'll say that your parking space must be clear for your car. You can't have storage, you can't have boxes, you can't have boats, you can't have motorcycles. You must have space for your car, 2 cars in every side-by-side garage, or else you get sanctioned by the homeowners association. It works in my neighborhood, and it's worked in others. And those will be written into the CCNRs.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, sir, very
I think the
simple.
finance commission
Yeah,
talked about it.
we've had some issues, and we found a lot of times here in Dublin, it's a matter of the homeowners association, of course, enforcing those kind of things, so it's important that they do that. And you mentioned another feature that I haven't seen, and that's access to the roof. And there's a table up there and so forth. Will there be limits in the CCR, what people can do on the roof?
Sure, we don't want towels hanging over the edge for elongated periods of time, or bamboo screens put up or anything like that. In the Southern California project we did, just if I can ramble for a minute, we did not have the stair tower that led you to the roof. It was an open staircase. And so the roof decks, you could reach over and say hi to your neighbor, shake hands, borrow their beer, whatever. And that was a different climate. In this climate, we wanted to enclose the staircase, but that also gives a tower element that separates your roof deck from your neighbor to give you a sense of privacy. And it'll be a wonderful view of the Tri-Valley and County Outlet, et cetera.
Gary, so I have a couple questions, and I asked Christy some of these, but I'm curious. But you talked about the project LA. Is that Silver Lake?
Yes.
Okay. So Silver Lake's a really nice. I mean, it's a great area. It's very trendy. So if this project's anything like what I've seen down there, this is a pretty edgy project,
It is.
right? So it's unique. So that is neat. That is cool. I remember when we were looking at the green,